Peace, peace, peace. What's happening, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? It's your girl, Cosmic Paradox. And I got a real important breakdown for you today. And what I'm breaking down is the TV show Westworld. Now, I put up a post about this particular show a little while ago saying how I felt this was going to be my most important breakdown yet. And as we go through this breakdown, and we're only just going to talk about season 1 right now. But as we go through this breakdown, you'll understand why I put so much emphasis on this particular show, especially considering the things that I often discuss and talk about in my videos. And so we're going to get into Westworld finally. This is long overdue. I should have been put this in video, but now's the time, so let's get right into it. Okay? Alright, now the thing about the show Westworld is before we get all into it, let's talk about the creators, the writers, producers of the show, right? This show was created by a guy by the name of Jonathan Nolan. Now, if you've been listening to me for quite a while, you probably heard me mention Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan. They're brothers. But these particular brothers have worked on some projects that are just some of my favorite because of what they are relaying. So when you look at Jonathan and Westworld, Westworld explores various metaphysical themes such as consciousness, free will, and the nature of reality. Is very in alignment with the process of a spiritual awakening, the developing of one's consciousness, the elevation of one's consciousness. And this show really delves into the ethical implications of a very big thing we're talking about or we're dealing with in our society right now, which is artificial intelligence, right? And there's questions about the boundaries between humans and what they call hosts, which are the AI entities in the whole show. So it raises a lot of thought-provoking ideas about the essence of humanity and the consequences of playing God consciousness. Now, as I've mentioned, Jonathan Nolan has done some projects, some things that I'm a huge fan of, such as Interstellar, The Dark Knight Rises. And he's also done these along with his brother Christopher Nolan. Now, Christopher Nolan is the writer and producer of a lot more projects that don't include his brother Jonathan, such as Oppenheimer, Tenet, Inception, and a few others. But you pretty much get the idea. These are very, symbolic, cerebral type of movies, and they usually relay some metaphysical components or ideas or themes in them, which is what makes me such a huge fan of them, because I can appreciate the complexity of these metaphysical concepts being put into a movie. I know a lot of people say all the time, how bad TV is for you and all of that, and I get it, and it's primarily, in my opinion, because of how it brainwashes, or how it has been used to brainwash people into viewing or having specific stereotypical ideas, or the indoctrination of just believing, things are a certain way because of how they're always perceived on TV. But in all actuality, it is still a form of art. And although it is exploited, and does a lot of contributing to the indoctrination dogma, there are a lot of strong projects or artistic pieces that relay a lot of spiritual components along the lines of mythology, along the lines of understanding the hero's journey. So not everything that we see is totally bad, but it does has, it's a double-edged sword. It comes with its pros and its cons, right? So the thing is to be neutral, be in the middle, to understand what you're dealing with, to know what you're dealing with. And at the same time, being able to dissect from it, it's, you know, um, eat the meat and spit out the bones. So there's always going to be certain things mixed up in every bit of truth that you're given. You just have to have the proper discernment to be able to work and navigate your way through it. Okay? Now, when you watch this whole Westworld show, it's showing you first, it's outside of time. They typically like to write in dealing with things outside of linear. It's not linear time. So the character development is happening outside of a traditional timeline. And when you look at the show, there's so many different things that is said that can correlate to one having a spiritual awakening and becoming aware of the nature of their own reality. Like inception, for example. See, these are the type of concepts that have some type of metaphysical, esoteric, layered theme within it. So there was a lot of little things that you catch when you watch this show, that the more you watch it, the more of the little smaller details you're able to catch, because once you're aware of how everything happens, there's so much more for you to pick up on all throughout the course of the season, because now you understand why certain things happen the way that they did. Now, I hope that y'all have seen this show, because I'm pretty much going to have to elaborate on some of the scenes and things in the plot. So it's going to be some spoilers in it. But if you're just listening to it for the knowledge, then that's cool, because it's probably just going to make you want to go back and watch it anyway, regardless of the spoilers and the things that I'm going to talk about while talking about this show, because we're looking at it for a deeper meaning, a deeper purpose for it, esoteric, knowledge, and therefore inspiring our own elevation of our own consciousness ourselves. Now, 30 years, there's an emphasis on 30 years in this show, because there's this time gap from the origin or the very beginning of the park to what is considered to be current present moment in time. And over that period of time has been 30 years. So when you think 30 years, or when you hear 30 years, that automatically, or it should automatically elude you to Saturn. Saturn returning, thinking about the karma or the cycle of time, getting back what was put out. And it's funny because the character Teresa, he said it's been 30 years and it's never been an issue in the park. She said, well, we're long overdue. Because, Saturn return typically runs from ages 27 to 30. It's so many moments in this show, yo. Like, this show is so heavy. And you really have to pay attention to the dialogue. See, a lot of people can get bored with these type of movies, these type of shows, because you have to understand what is happening to really get it. But when you understand, you really understand. One of the main things that starts to happen to us on the path of self awakening, spiritual awakening or enlightenment, is you begin to question so many things. You pretty much, if you really doing it right, you question everything. You should question it all. So the question that they would always ask the host, which is what they call the AI robot, entities or this is what they call them, hosts. So they would always ask them, have you ever questioned the nature of your reality? So you got to think about this in terms of how you live your life. Have you ever questioned the nature of your reality? Have you ever questioned things as they are? If you have questioned these things, then you are questioning the nature of your reality. Therefore, you are on some level awakened to this matrix that we are in. Now, there's levels to the awakening, People can be a little aware and still kind of go about their business. But then there's the people who dig deeper, who truly seek it, like you see in the movie The Matrix. That was the whole thing about Neo in The Matrix. He was searching for them, but he was searching for Morpheus, but Morpheus and everybody else was searching for him because he was the one, as in being Neo, as in you are the one. You are seeking, not realizing that you are simply seeking yourself. That's the whole point of it all. So have you ever questioned your reality? Now, one of the main characters or the baseline character, especially in terms of the host, is Dolores. It starts off something with her saying something along the lines of, some people choose to see the ugliness of this world, the disarray. I choose to see the beauty. That's the whole core concept of the initial desire, or the beginning of what brought about the fall into this physical reality, the beauty, seeing the beauty of it. And it's two sides of it. There's a means of how you have to understand beauty in terms of your path, your journey, in terms of in this knowledge. And then there's the beauty of the illusion, which is what your eyes are showing you and what you fall to believe to be real when it's simply an illusion of this world. So there's different concepts of understanding. There's different levels of the concept of beauty, because in some, religious terms, we look at that in a negative light, because as I said, that's the root of the desire. But it's more to it than that in terms of the beauty. And this show really kind of lays it out, and we're going to talk about it throughout the course of this video, and seeing the beauty of this world. And that's how the show opens. The show opens with Dolores kind of speaking those words or something along those lines. And this is pretty much the baseline of her character. Okay, now this is very important in terms of realizing what brought about the whole rebellion or the whole revolution of the host, because it starts with a spark It starts with a fire. And if we're thinking about in terms of beauty being the origin, we understand that Lucifer is also connected to beauty or Venus. And we can understand in terms of this energy when we talk about the mythology of Lucifer and beauty and the esoteric understanding of what Lucifer brings versus the exoteric. You can see the strong metaphorical theme throughout this whole show. And I have a theory, man. I have a theory that you get a certain level. And I've said this before. I have a theory that if you get to a certain level of recognition, of success, of power, or of wealth, that you gain access to certain things that people in the general public don't. And that's in terms of occult knowledge and information. And I just say that I have this as a theory because there are certain people within society that always have these certain symbolic, metaphysical messages for the public. And some would look at that and would immediately go to the negative view of it. But we have to understand there's two sides to everything. And it's not always a bad thing. And there are things that you can do with these same symbolic, with these same symbols, and you can relay your own messages to the masses. You can speak to the masses subconsciously in your own way. These are simply tools to be used, but that's just a little theory. And what we have to know is to believe there is an order to our days is a purpose. That's believing in a purpose. When you can see the process or understand the process, then you pretty much can align with that purpose, even if it's false, even if it's a false sense of purpose. Because sometimes the order invites a security. So we hear them talk about visitors. Now, visitors are the people who come to the park and visit, so they pretty much get to live out their desires, give in to their urges. And so there is a train, right? And the train is what brings them into the park. Whenever you see trains, symbolically, you're dealing with the mind, you're dealing with thought. So it's like a concept of going inside the mind or going inside a mind. Remember, the mind is mental. So if the mind is all, it's like everything of creation would be the mind of the all encompassing of everything. We are just inside of a mind. So it's like a mind and a mind and a mind, right? Okay, but so these are the visitors. So the visitors, they get to come. Now there's a man on the train, right? There's a man on the train who says he played it white hat the first time. This was the symbolism that they was giving you. See, the thing about a hat, right? A hat symbolically represents the crown chakra. So it is what separates man from, it's a reminder that there is something higher than man. So a white hat would generally derive or symbolically represent good, light, hero type of energy, the good side, the doing the good. So that is white hat symbolism. Then when you're dealing with black hat, you're dealing with what's hidden, you're dealing with what's manipulation, you're dealing with the dark side or evil. Because remember, the duality of it is good and evil. That's why you have the white and the black. So he said that he played it white hat the first time, right? So he was describing the archetype that he took when he first came to the park, right? And it's crazy they call it a park. So when he came the first time, so he said he brought his family, they fished and did a lot of good things, because of course it is ideal that you want to show your good side, or what's typically or really just your ego self or the illusion of what's good about you to your family. But there's a whole other side, right? And that's what he goes on to say. He says that the last time he went straight evil, and he described it as the best 2 weeks of his life. He came as his shadow and did all of the things that he had impulses to do, all of the things that he had subdued, that he pushed down, that he pushed away, the urges and feelings that he had didn't exist, the things he didn't want to do, robbing, stealing, unaliving people, R-word women, things like that, all of the things of the shadow, right? So this was a very great introduction into the whole concept of duality that showed throughout the course of the show itself, and showing the true nature of man and how things typically are with people and how much people are willing to push down because of needing to be accepted within society. Okay? So there was a good little gem in the very initial beginning of it. Now, also in that first episode, there's a scene with Teddy and Dolores, and they're looking at the cattle out in the pasture. And he says, I never understood how you keep them all headed in the same direction. And Dolores explains the Judas steer to him. She points it out and says the rest will follow wherever you make him go. And so Teddy said, how do you pick him out? And she said, you just know these things. And this was important for the whole rest of the season. This was important because this was pretty much telling you or foreshadowing what was to come. And it was very deep. And you gotta remember, Dolores was the rancher's daughter. That was her storyline, the rancher's daughter. Now, she's also she was the first or the original host made in the park by Arnold himself. Now, Arnold is a character or a name or a figure who we hear a lot about, but we never see. We don't see him because in this day's time, he's dead already. And he died when the park first opened. Now, a lot of these metaphysical storylines have a Gnostic feel to them, or a Gnostic type of mythology about them, because in all actuality, that's really what most of Christianity is based off of. The aside from the understanding of the African traditional systems, but that's also what Gnosticism comes out of. It's just later day, and it's just adjusted for the times. And when you look at it historically, you just kind of know that's kind of how it goes. But anyway, so Arnold and Ford are the two who created the park. So Arnold and Ford, but we never see Arnold because Arnold dies right before or exactly when the park opens. So we only know Ford. And mind you, 30 years have passed. So this is 30 years. So this is one Saturn cycle. So now is the time, symbolically or psychologically speaking, when it's time for your own inner responsibility has to kick in your own mind, bringing it to the surface of your mind. So everything that went on between Ford and Arnold has to come back around this cycle, because now is the time that it has to come to the forefront, because now we have to check the foundation of a thing before we move forward into what this is really going to be all about. So it's a lot of symbolism in this show. So when she talks about the Judas steer, she said, you just know these things. So she understands the nature of these things. Now, mind you, again, she is the very first original host of the whole park. Arnold created her himself. Not Arnold. Yeah, Arnold. So, she says you just know these things, and she goes on to say, like, I knew you'd be back. And he says, you saying I'm predictable. She says, there's a path for everyone, and your path leads you back to me. I know things will work out how they're meant to. Because this is the programming. Of course he has to make his way back to her. He's supposed to. It's his job to protect Dolores. That is his programming. That is his wiring. That is what he is in place to do. That is his storyline. That is his destiny. The Keymaker said in The Matrix Reloaded, we are all here to do what we are all here to do. So we are all here to do whatever mission or whatever purpose that we are aligned with doing according to the nature of our stars, according to the energetic vibration that we are. It's not that the stars predict things, it's that the stars lay out or spell out your vibratory frequency. And there are certain things that are aligned for your frequency and your frequency only. There are things in this universe that only you are destined to do. You are cosmically aligned for that purpose. That's just the nature of the order of things. Because it is all calculated. Nothing shows up in your life by accident. It is all meticulously calculated and aligned to your vibration. That's the whole mathematics of God, or math of the universe. That's the point of numerology and astrology and understanding the Kabbalah and all of this, to understand the nature or the nature of your vibration, of your frequency, so you can rise above it. It's never so you can be a crutch to stay the same. It's always a means for you to grow closer to your divinity. Now, when we meet the man in black, right? The man in black, he's one of the most important figures in this show. He plays it so well. You know what I'm saying? The dialogue is very important when it comes to his character. That's how you know he's bringing that whole dark element, that whole dark vibe, because of all the gems he be giving, the truth that's within the dark things that he does. So if you ask me, you have to have a good antagonist or villain for a story to really be good. In my opinion, that's just me, that's just how I see it. But the man in black is very, very important in terms of this show. And when we hear Bernard's voice speaking to Dolores, he says for his last question, what if I told you that you were wrong in regards to what she thought about the visitors? And this is talking over the scene where we see the horrific storyline of Dolores that's been going on for 30 years. So for 30 years, she's been living this one storyline of the rancher's daughter, and it's a horrific one, right? It's a horrific one, but as hosts, they don't remember. They have no memory. They have no recollection of the things that happened to them repeatedly, and it's been 30 years. Key thing, there's been 30 years.